The metal corridors of Research Station Kepler-7 hummed with the steady rhythm of life. Support systems. Dr. Lee Hanna walked through the empty hallways carrying her tablet and a cup of cold coffee. Her footsteps echoed against the walls as she made her way to the laboratory section. It was early morning shift, and most of the crew was still sleeping. Hanna had been working on Kepler-7 for 3 years now. The station orbited a planet called Zarian Prime, a world covered in thick jungles and dangerous creatures. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. But unlike her colleagues, Hanna believed that even the most dangerous creatures could be understood. This belief had made her unpopular with the other researchers. The laboratory doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, Dr. Choi Minho was already at work, examining tissue samples under a microscope. He looked up when Hanna entered and gave her a cold nod. "Morning, Hanna," he said without much warmth in his voice. "Good morning, Minho," she replied, setting her things down at her workstation. The tension between them was obvious. Minho thought Hanna was too soft, too willing to see intelligence where there was only animal instinct. He had told her this many times. Most of the other scientists agreed with him. "Did you hear about the capture mission yesterday?" Minho asked, turning back to his microscope. Hanna had heard rumors. The military team had gone down to the planet's surface and brought something back. Something big and dangerous. "What did they find?" "A vorthek," Minho said the word like it left a bad taste in his mouth. 12 feet tall, covered in black scales, more teeth than you can count. Commander Park says it killed 3 of his soldiers before they managed to stun it. Hanna felt a chill run down her spine. She had read about vortheks in the early survey reports. They were described as mindless killing machines, creatures that attacked anything that moved. But something about those reports had always bothered her. The attack pattern seemed too organized, too planned for a simple beast. The laboratory doors opened again. Commander Park Ji-ho entered with his usual confident stride. He was a tall man with short black hair and cold eyes. Behind him walked Dr. Kim Do-yeon, the research director. Kim was older, with gray hair and a permanent frown on his face. "We need volunteers to study the specimen," Kim announced without greeting anyone. "It's being held in Containment Cell 7. Standard safety protocols apply." Minho immediately shook his head. "I have important work with the plant samples. Can't spare the time." Other researchers in the lab also found excuses. Dr. Yang Sora claimed she was too busy with her crystal analysis. Dr. Chun Tae-yun said his equipment maintenance couldn't wait. One by one, they all refused. "I'll do it," Hanna said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Park raised an eyebrow. "Dr. Lee, this isn't some harmless creature we're talking about. This thing is a killer." "All the more reason to study it properly," Hanna replied. "If we understand it, maybe we can find better ways to protect ourselves." Kim laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Always the optimist, aren't you, Hanna?" "Very well. The creature is your responsibility. But don't come crying to us when it tries to tear your head off." Park looked uncomfortable. "Sir, with respect, maybe we should assign someone with more practical experience." Dr. Lee volunteered, Kim said with a shrug. "Besides, if her theories about alien intelligence are correct, she should have no problem communicating with it." The sarcasm in his voice was clear. Hanna felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her expression calm. "When can I begin?" "The creature will be secured in 1 hour," Park said. "I'll escort you to the containment level personally, and Dr. Lee," he fixed her with a stern look, "stay outside the energy barrier at all times. This thing isn't your friend." After the men left, the laboratory fell silent. Hanna could feel the other researchers watching her. Finally, Minho spoke up. "You're making a mistake. Hanna, this obsession with finding intelligence in every monster is going to get you killed one day." "Maybe," Hanna said, checking her equipment. "But what if I'm right? What if these creatures aren't monsters at all?" Minho shook his head and returned to his work. "You're wasting your time." An hour later, Hanna followed Commander Park through the lower levels of the station. The containment area was heavily secured with multiple checkpoints and armed guards. As they walked, Park explained the capture mission. "We were setting up a mining survey near the southern continent," he said. "The thing came out of nowhere. Fast as lightning, smart enough to use the jungle for cover. It took down Corporal Han and Private Kim before we even knew what hit us." "How did you capture it?" Hannah asked. "Stun weapons. Took 6 direct hits to bring it down. Even then, it kept trying to fight until the tranquilizers kicked in." Park stopped at a reinforced door. "We're here." The door slid open to reveal a large chamber with thick, transparent walls. Beyond the walls was another room, larger and darker. At first, Hannah couldn't see anything inside. Then something moved in the shadows. The Vorthak was even more impressive than the reports had described. It stood on 2 powerful legs, easily 12 feet tall. Its body was covered in scales that looked like polished black stone. Multiple eyes glowed with a dim red light from its elongated head. When it moved, Hannah could see the muscles rippling beneath its armor-like skin, but what struck her most was not its size or its obvious strength. It was the way the creature held itself. There was something in its posture, something in the way it moved its head, that spoke of awareness, of intelligence. "Magnificent," she whispered. Park stared at her. "Magnificent? That thing killed 2 of my men." "I'm not saying it isn't dangerous," Hannah said, pressing closer to the barrier. "But look at it, really look. See how it's studying us? It's not pacing like a caged animal. It's thinking." The Vorthak had indeed stopped moving. Its multiple eyes were fixed on Hannah, watching her with what seemed like curiosity. When she raised her hand and placed it against the barrier, the creature tilted its massive head to one side. "It's just reacting to movement," Park said, but his voice sounded less certain than before. "Maybe," Hannah said. But deep inside, she felt something else. A strange tingling sensation, as if something was trying to touch her mind. She had never experienced anything like it before. The Vorthak made a low sound, almost like a rumble of thunder. Then it slowly approached the barrier until it was standing directly across from Hannah. Up close, she could see that its eyes weren't just glowing randomly. There was a pattern to the light, a rhythm that almost seemed like it's trying to communicate, she said softly. Park checked his watch. "I have to get back to my duties. The lab equipment you requested is already set up in the observation room. Try not to do anything stupid." After he left, Hannah was alone with the creature. She set up her recording equipment and began taking notes. But she found herself spending more time simply watching the Vorthak than studying it. There was definitely intelligence there. She was sure of it. The question was how to prove it to everyone else. 3 days had passed since Hannah first met the Vorthak. She had spent every free moment in the observation room, watching and taking notes. Her official reports were carefully written to sound scientific and objective. But her private notes told a different story. The creature she had named Keth in her personal files was definitely intelligent. She was certain of it now. It had learned her daily schedule and would position itself near the barrier whenever she arrived. When she left, it would retreat to the far corner of its cell, as if it understood she was gone for the day, but convincing. Others was proving impossible. "Dr. Lee, your reports make interesting reading," Dr. Kim Do-yeon said during the morning briefing. "But I see no concrete evidence of intelligence. Just behavioral observations that could apply to any large predator." Hannah sat at the conference table surrounded by her colleagues. Dr. Choi Min-ho looked bored. Dr. Yang Sora was checking her tablet instead of listening. Commander Park sat with his arms crossed, clearly skeptical. "The creature responds to specific light patterns," Hannah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It shows curiosity about new objects I placed near the barrier. Yesterday, it even seemed to mimic some of my hand gestures." "Seemed to," Park emphasized. "Dr. Lee, with respect, you're seeing what you want to see. That thing is a killing machine. Nothing more. Then why hasn't it tried to attack the barrier?" Hannah asked. "If it's just a mindless beast, wouldn't it be trying to break out constantly?" "Maybe it's learned the barrier hurts," Min-ho suggested. "Simple conditioning, like training a dog. Kim nodded approvingly. Exactly. Dr. Lee, I appreciate your dedication, but we need hard data, not wishful thinking. I'm assigning Dr. Yang to assist you. Perhaps a second opinion will help maintain objectivity. After the meeting, Hana walked back to the containment level feeling frustrated. She knew what she was seeing, but how could she prove it? As she entered the observation room, she was surprised to find Dr. Choi Minho waiting for her. Hana, we need to talk, he said, his expression serious. About what? About you. You're spending too much time down here. People are starting to talk. Hana began setting up her equipment. Let them talk. I'm serious. Yesterday, you missed the department meeting because you were here. Last week, you turned down the dinner invitation from Dr. Park Soyeon because you had important observations to make. This research is important, Minho, more important than your career. Than your reputation? Minho moved closer to her. Hana, I've known you for 5 years. You're brilliant, but you're also stubborn, sometimes too stubborn for your own good. Through the barrier, Keth had noticed their arrival. The massive creature moved toward them with that same careful, deliberate pace Hana had observed before. Its multiple eyes focused on her, and she felt that strange, tingling sensation again. Look at it, she said softly. Really look at it, Minho. Tell me you don't see intelligence there. Minho glanced at the Vorthak, then back at her. I see a dangerous alien predator. Nothing more, but Hana caught something in his voice. A hesitation? That hadn't been there before. After Minho left, Hana was alone with Keth again. She had been experimenting with different ways to communicate. Hand signals had produced some interesting responses. Light patterns seemed to get the creature's attention. But she needed something more definitive. She pulled out a small device she had borrowed from the engineering department. It was a programmable light panel that could display different colors and patterns. She had spent the previous evening programming simple sequences into it. Okay, Keth, she said, using the name aloud for the first time. Let's try something new. She activated the device. A series of red lights blinked in a simple pattern, 3 short flashes, followed by 2 long ones, then 3 short again. She repeated the sequence several times. Keth watched intently. Its head tilted to one side, then the other. The glow from its eyes seemed to pulse, but randomly. After 10 minutes, Hana tried a different pattern. This time she used blue lights in. A rhythm like a heartbeat. 2 quick flashes, pause, 2 quick flashes, pause. This got a stronger reaction. Keth moved closer to the barrier, its massive form casting shadows across the cell. The glow from its eyes began to change, shifting from the usual dim red to a brighter, more focused light, and then something amazing happened. The creature's eyes began to pulse with the same rhythm as Hana's light pattern. 2 quick flashes, pause, 2 quick flashes, pause. Hana's heart raced. You're copying me, she whispered. She changed the pattern again. 3 long flashes this time. After a moment, Keth's eyes responded with 3 long pulses of light. This is it, Hana said, her hands shaking as she recorded everything. This is proof. But her excitement was interrupted by a loud alarm. The containment room's emergency lights began flashing red. Over the intercom, she heard Commander Park's voice. All personnel evacuate the lower levels immediately. We have a containment breach in Sector 4? Hana grabbed her equipment and headed for the door. But as she reached it, she heard a sound that made her freeze. A low, rumbling call that seemed to come from Keth. The creature was standing at the barrier, its eyes bright with what looked like concern. It was worried about her. The realization hit her like a physical blow. This wasn't just intelligence she was seeing. This was emotion. Keth cared about what happened to her. I have to go, she said, knowing the creature couldn't understand her words but hoping it might understand her tone. I'll be back, I promise. As she ran through the corridors toward the emergency assembly point, Hana's mind raced. She had made contact with an alien intelligence, real, undeniable contact. But would anyone believe her? The assembly point was chaos. Scientists and technicians crowded together while security teams rushed past. Hana found Minho near the back of the group. What happened? She asked. One of the specimen containers in Biolab 4 malfunctioned, he explained. Some kind of toxic plant release? Nothing serious, but they're evacuating everything below level 6 as a precaution. How long until we can go back? Minho looked at her strangely. Why? What's so urgent? Hannah hesitated. Should she tell him about the light communication? Would he believe her, or would it just confirm his fears that she was becoming too attached to her subject? I was in the middle of an important test, she said finally. The creature will still be there tomorrow, Hannah. But as they waited for the all-clear, Hannah found herself thinking about the concern she had seen in Keth's eyes. The creature wasn't just intelligent. It was forming an emotional bond with her. The question was, what would happen when the others found out? 3 hours later, Hannah was finally allowed to return to the containment level. As she entered the observation room, she saw Keth immediately move toward the barrier. The creature's eyes were bright, almost eager. I'm back, she said softly. She set up the light panel again and began the same sequence she had used before. Keth responded immediately, its eyes pulsing in perfect synchronization with her patterns. But this time, Hannah tried something different. Instead of changing the pattern herself, she waited to see what Keth would do. The creature's eyes went dark for a moment. Then they began a new pattern, 5 quick flashes, followed by 2 long ones, then 5 quick again. Hannah stared in amazement. Keth wasn't just copying her anymore. It was trying to communicate on its own. She quickly programmed her device to match the creature's pattern and flashed it back. Keth's entire body seemed to vibrate with what could only be described as excitement. For the next hour they continued their light conversation. Keth would create a pattern, Hannah would copy it. Then she would create one, and Keth would respond. It was basic, primitive communication. But it was definitely communication. When Dr. Young Sora arrived to begin her assigned observation shift, she found Hannah sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the Vorthak with tears in her eyes. Dr. Lee, is everything all right? Hannah looked up at her colleague. Sora, how do you prove that something impossible is actually true? Yang looked confused. I'm not sure I understand. The creature, it's not just intelligent. It's trying to talk to. 2 weeks had passed since Hannah's breakthrough with the light communication. Every day brought new discoveries about Keth, but every day also brought new problems with her colleagues. They thought she was losing her mind. Dr. Lee, I need to speak. With you privately, Dr. Kim Do-yeon said after the morning briefing. His voice was cold and formal. Hannah followed him to his office, knowing this conversation would not go well. Kim closed the door and gestured for her to sit. Instead of sitting behind his desk, he chose the chair next to her. This was supposed to make the conversation feel more friendly, but it didn't work. Hannah, I'm concerned about your recent reports, he began. You claim the creature is showing signs of complex communication, but your evidence is ... questionable. The light patterns are documented, Hannah said. I have hours of recordings showing clear responses to specific stimuli. You have recordings of lights flashing, Kim corrected. That's not the same thing as communication. Dr. Young has been observing your sessions. Her reports paint a very different picture. Hannah felt her stomach drop. Yang Sora had been assigned as her partner 2 weeks ago, but the woman spent most of her time taking notes about Hannah's behavior rather than studying Keth. What kind of picture? Kim pulled out a tablet and read from it. Quote, Dr. Lee shows signs of emotional attachment to the specimen. She speaks to it as if it were human. She has given it a name and refers to it as him rather than it. She appears to believe the creature recognizes her personally and shows concern for her welfare. Because it does, Hannah said, knowing how that sounded. Dr. Lee, you're a scientist. You know better than this. What you're describing is called anthropomorphism. You're projecting human qualities onto a non-human creature. I'm not projecting anything. The evidence is right there if you just look at it objectively. Kim leaned back in his chair. That's exactly the problem. You're not being objective anymore. You're too close to this project. Hannah felt anger rising in her chest. So what are you saying? I'm saying you need to step back. Take a break. Let Dr. Yang handle the creature observations for a while. You can't do that. I'm the only one who's made any progress with it. Progress toward what? Hannah, even if this creature is intelligent, which I doubt, what's the point? It's dangerous. It killed soldiers. Our job is to understand these creatures so we can protect ourselves from them, not make friends with them. After leaving Kim's office, Hannah went straight to the containment level. She needed to see Keth, needed to confirm that what she was experiencing was real. As soon as she entered the observation room, the massive creature moved toward the barrier. Its eyes brightened with what she had learned to recognize as happiness. "Hello, Keth," she said softly. She set up her light panel and began the greeting sequence they had developed over the past weeks. 3 short flashes, followed by 2 long ones. Keth responded immediately with the same pattern, then added his own variation, 5 quick pulses that Hannah had come to understand meant something like excitement or pleasure, but today felt different. As they continued their light conversation, Hannah began to feel that strange tingling sensation more strongly than ever before. It started as a gentle pressure in her mind, like someone trying to get her attention. Then suddenly it was more than that. Images flashed through her thoughts. Not her own memories, but something else. She saw a vast jungle world with purple skies. She saw creatures like Keth moving through massive trees in organized groups. She saw them building structures, tending to young ones, working together in ways that spoke of advanced civilization. The images lasted only a few seconds, but they left Hannah shaking. She looked at Keth through the barrier and saw that the creature was watching her intently. Its eyes were glowing brighter than she had ever seen them. "You did that?" she whispered. "You showed me those things." Keth made a low rumbling sound. That Hannah had learned meant agreement or acknowledgement. Over the next few days, the mental connection grew stronger. Keth began sharing more images with her. She saw his homeworld, Vorth, in incredible detail. It was a planet of vast forests and crystal cities, where creatures like Keth lived in harmony with their environment, but she also saw darker images, strange black ships arriving from space, creatures that looked like twisted combinations of machine and flesh, consuming everything in their path. She watched as Keth's people fought desperately to defend their world. "The Devourers," she said one day as a particularly vivid image filled her mind. "That's what you call them." Keth's eyes pulsed once, confirming her understanding. Through these shared visions, Hannah learned that Keth wasn't just intelligent. His people were far more advanced than humans in some ways. They had developed psychic abilities over millions of years of evolution. They could sense emotions, share thoughts, and even communicate across vast distances. "That's how you knew I was different," Hannah realized. "When the soldiers captured you, you could sense their hostility. But with me, you sensed something else." The images Keth shared next made her heart race. She saw the research station from his perspective, but not as it appeared visually. Instead, she saw the emotional landscapes of everyone inside it. The soldiers appeared as bright red clouds of aggression and fear. Most of the scientists showed up as cool blue patches of indifference, but Hannah appeared as something else entirely. A warm, golden glow that spoke of curiosity, compassion, and genuine care. "You can read emotions," she said in amazement. "That's why you're calm with me but aggressive with the others?" More images came. Hannah saw that Keth's capture had been no accident. He had been part of a scouting mission, sent to investigate the human presence on Vorth. His people were trying to determine if humans were another threat like the Devourers. But the most shocking revelation came when Keth showed her what the research station was actually built on. Through his psychic senses, she saw a vast underground complex beneath their feet. Ancient Vorthec technology, dormant but still functional. Defense systems that had been built to protect against the Devourers. The humans had unknowingly built their station directly on top of one of Vorth's most important military installations. "We need to tell them," Hannah said, but even as she spoke, she knew it was hopeless. Who would believe her? Kim already thought she was losing her grip on reality. Commander Park would probably have her locked up for psychological evaluation. Her fears were confirmed the next morning when Dr. Yang Sora confronted her. "I know what you've been doing," Yang said as they met outside the containment area. "I've been watching you through the security cameras. You sit there for hours staring at that thing like you're having conversations with it." "I'm having conversations with it," Hana said. Yang looked at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. "Listen to yourself. You're talking about having conversations with a monster. Do you realize how that sounds? It's not a monster. It's intelligent, more intelligent than we are in some ways. Even if that were true, which it isn't, so what? Dr. Lee, that creature killed people, human people, our people. And you're down here trying to make friends with it." Hannah felt her patience snap. Those soldiers attacked first. Keth was defending himself. "Keth?" Yang stared at her. "You named it Keth?" "Dr. Lee, you need help. Professional help." That afternoon, Hannah received a message to report to Commander Park's office immediately. When she arrived, she found Park waiting with Dr. Kim and 2 security officers she didn't recognize. "Dr. Lee, please sit down," Park said, his voice carefully neutral. "What's this about?" "We've received some disturbing reports about your behavior," Kim said. "Multiple witnesses say you've been talking to the creature as if it were human. You've given it a name. You claim it's communicating with you through some kind of telepathic connection." "Because it is communicating with me," Hannah said. "If you'd just listen to what I've learned." "What you think you've learned," Park interrupted. "Dr. Lee, I've seen soldiers develop emotional attachments to their weapons, their vehicles, even their enemies. It's a psychological defense mechanism. But what you're describing goes beyond that." One of the security officers stepped forward. "Dr. Lee, we need to ask you some questions about your recent activities. Have you attempted to make physical contact with the specimen? Have you tried to disable or breach the containment barrier?" "Of course not. I'm not crazy." "No one is saying you're crazy," Kim said, though his expression suggested otherwise. "But we are concerned about your objectivity. I'm temporarily suspending you from the project." "You can't do that." "I can and I am. You'll be transferred to Dr. Choi's botanical research team until further notice. Dr. Yang will take over creature observations." As Hannah left Park's office, she felt a crushing sense of despair. Not just for herself, but for Keth. Young Sora had no interest in understanding him. She saw him as nothing more than a dangerous animal to be studied and eventually disposed of. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She lay in her quarters thinking about everything Keth had shown her. The devourers were real. They were coming. And the research station was sitting on top of the only thing that might be able to stop them. But how could she warn anyone when they all thought she was losing her mind? For 3 days, Hana worked in Dr. Choi Minho's botanical lab, cataloging plant samples and pretending to care about root structures. But her mind was always on Keth. Through their psychic connection, she could feel his confusion and distress. He didn't understand why she had stopped visiting him. The connection had grown stronger during their separation. Even from several levels away, Hannah could sense Keth's emotions: fear, loneliness, and something else that made her heart ache. The creature was calling for her, sending out psychic signals that only she could hear. "You're distracted again?" Minho said as Hannah stared at a plant sample without really seeing it. "This is the 3rd time I've had to repeat myself." "Sorry," Hannah said, trying to focus. "What were you saying about the mineral content?" "I wasn't talking about mineral content. I was asking if you wanted to get dinner later." Minho sat down his tablet and looked at her seriously. "Hannah, you need to let this go. The creature study is over for you. Dr. Yang is handling it now." "How is it going? The study, I mean." Minho hesitated. "Not well. Yang says the creature has become aggressive. Again, it won't respond to any of her tests. Yesterday it tried to break through the barrier." Hannah's heart sank. Of course Keth was aggressive with Yang. The woman approached him with fear and disgust, emotions that his psychic abilities would pick up immediately. "Maybe if I could just explain to her how to approach it properly." "No," Minho said firmly. "Hannah, you're off the project. Dr. Kim made that very clear. If you try to interfere, you'll be in serious trouble. That evening, Hannah sat in her quarters trying to read, but the words on the screen kept blurring together. The psychic connection with Keth was getting stronger, and with it came images that filled her with dread. She saw Yang Sora in the observation room surrounded by military personnel. Commander Park was there, along with two men in uniforms she didn't recognize. They were discussing something, pointing at charts and technical diagrams. Through Keth's enhanced senses, Hannah could feel their emotions. Excitement, anticipation, and underlying it all, a cold hunger for power. They were planning to move Keth somewhere else? The next morning, Hannah went to work early, hoping to catch Minho before the others arrived. She found him in the lab, but he wasn't alone. Dr. Young Sora was with him, and they were deep in conversation. The transfer is scheduled for tomorrow, Young was saying. The military research facility on Luna Base has better equipment for studying dangerous specimens. What transfer? Hannah asked, making both of them jump. Yang looked annoyed. Dr. Lee, you're not supposed to be here this early. What transfer? Hannah repeated, her voice getting louder. Minho sighed. The creature is being moved to a military facility. They have better security there and more advanced research equipment. You mean they have better weapons research equipment? Hannah said, understanding immediately. They want to study Keth as a potential weapon. His name isn't Keth, Young snapped. It's a dangerous alien predator, and yes, the military wants to understand how it can be used to protect human colonies. Hannah felt sick. You can't do this. You don't understand what you're dealing with? We understand perfectly, Young said. We're dealing with a creature that killed human soldiers. Now that creature will serve humanity instead of threatening it. Hannah looked at Minho, hoping for support, but he avoided her eyes. This decision came from the top, he said quietly. There's nothing any of us can do about it, but Hannah had to try. She spent the rest of the day trying to reach Dr. Kim, Commander Park, even Station Commander Lim Soo-yoon. None of them would see her. Their assistants all gave her the same message. The decision had been made and was final. That night, Hannah made a choice that would change everything. She accessed the station's personnel files using her old security codes, which hadn't been deactivated yet. She needed to find a way to stop the transfer, and that meant getting to Keth. The containment level was heavily guarded now. 2 security officers stood outside the elevator, and more were stationed at every checkpoint. But Hannah knew the stations. Maintenance tunnels better than most people. She had spent many late nights using them to move between labs without disturbing ongoing experiments. It took her 2 hours to work her way through the narrow passages, crawling through ventilation, shafts, and utility corridors. When she finally reached the containment area, she was dirty and exhausted, but she had made it. The observation room was empty. Through the barrier, she could see Keth lying motionless in the far corner of his cell. For a moment, she thought, he might be unconscious or worse. Then his multiple eyes opened and focused on her. The creature's joy at seeing her hit Hannah like a physical force. Through their psychic link, she felt his relief, his happiness, and underneath it all, his fear of what was going to happen to him. I'm here, she whispered, pressing her hands against the barrier. I'm so sorry they kept me away. Keth rose and moved toward her, his massive form seeming to flow across the cell. When he reached the barrier, he placed one huge clawed hand against it, directly opposite hers. Images flooded Hannah's mind. She saw Yang's experiments, cold and clinical attempts to provoke aggressive responses. She felt Keth's confusion and pain as the researchers treated him like a mindless animal. And she saw something else that made her blood run cold. The military researchers weren't just planning to study Keth. They were planning to dissect him while he was still alive, believing that his nervous system held the key to understanding his species' abilities. They don't know you're sentient, Hannah said, tears streaming down her face. To them, you're just an animal. They think they can cut you apart without it being murder. More images came from Keth. He showed her the transfer preparations, the specially designed transport cage, the sedatives they would use to keep him unconscious during the journey, but he also showed her something else. The underground Vorthak. installation was responding to his distress. Ancient defense systems were slowly powering up, awakened by the psychic calls of one of their guardians. The facility had been dormant for thousands of years, but it was still functional. "The base defenses," Hannah whispered. "You're activating them." Keth's response came not in images but in words, somehow transmitted directly into her mind. The first time she had heard his actual voice, and it was deep and resonant, filled with an alien but unmistakable intelligence. "My calls have reached the void between stars. My people know I am here, but the devourers come also. They follow the scent of my distress across the darkness." Hannah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air in the containment area. "How long do we have?" "Soon, very soon." A loud clang echoed through the observation room. Someone was opening the main entrance to the containment area. Hannah heard voices getting closer. "Security guards doing their rounds. I have to go," she said. "But I won't let them take you. Somehow, I'll find a way to stop this." As she turned to leave, Keth's voice echoed in her mind one more time. "Little star mind you have given me hope when I thought there was none, but you must understand. If they try to harm me, if they try to cut into my flesh while I still live, I will call out with such force that every Vorthik within 1,000 light years will hear me, and they will come, not to rescue me, but to avenge me." Hannah was halfway back to her quarters when the alarms started blaring. The alarms were different this time. Not the steady warning tone of a containment breach or system malfunction, but a harsh, urgent wailing that Hannah had only heard during emergency drills. The sound that meant the station was under attack, emergency. Lights bathed the corridors in flashing red as Hannah ran toward the command center. Over the intercom, Commander Park's voice crackled with static and barely controlled panic. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have multiple unknown contacts approaching from deep space. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." The command center was chaos when Hannah arrived. Officers shouted over each other while displays showed dozens of dark shapes moving toward the station. Dr. Kim stood near the main screen, his face pale as he watched the approaching fleet. "What are they?" someone called out. "Unknown design," came the reply from the sensor operator. "Nothing in our databases matches these ships. They're organic looking, like they're grown rather than built." Hannah felt ice in her veins. Through her connection with Keth, she could sense his terror and rage. The images he had shown her of the devourers flashed through her mind. Black ships that looked like twisted combinations of machine and flesh. "Those are devourer ships," she said. But her voice was lost in the noise. On the main screen, the lead ships were close enough now to see details. They were nightmarish things, covered in what looked like diseased skin stretched over metallic frameworks. Tentacle-like appendages writhed from their hulls, and their surfaces pulsed with an unhealthy light. "My God," Dr. Kim whispered. "What are those things?" The first ship reached the station's outer defense perimeter. The automated weapon systems opened fire, sending streams of energy bolts toward the alien vessel. The shots struck its hull and seemed to be absorbed, causing the ship's surface to glow brighter. "Our weapons aren't working," the tactical officer reported. "The energy is being absorbed somehow." More ships arrived, surrounding the station. As Hannah watched in horror, she saw smaller craft detaching from the main vessels. These were even more disturbing, looking like giant insects made of metal and rotting meat. "Boarding pods," Park said grimly. "All security teams to defensive positions." The first impacts shook the entire station. Through the hull, they could hear a grinding, tearing sound as the alien craft burrowed through the outer plating like parasites. "Sir, we're losing hull integrity on levels 4 through 7, an engineer reported. "The things are eating through our armor." Dr. Cheon Tae-yun burst into the command center, his face streaked with grease and panic. "Commander, I need to speak with Dr. Lee immediately." Park spun around. "This is hardly the time for—" "Sir, it's about the containment breach. The creature is free." Everyone in the command center turned to stare at Hannah. She felt her heart hammering in her chest. "What do you mean, free?" "Something overloaded Containment system, Taeyun explained rapidly. All the barriers on the lower levels failed at once. But here's the strange part. The creature didn't try to escape. It's just standing in the corridor outside its cell, like it's waiting for something. Commander Park grabbed Hannah by the shoulder. Dr. Lee, if that thing gets loose in the station while we're under attack, it won't hurt anyone, Hannah said. Keth isn't the enemy here, Keth? Park stared at her. You named it? Another impact shook the station, more violent than the first. Through the walls they could hear a new sound, a wet, scraping noise like something massive crawling through the corridors. Sir, we have intruders on level 6, came a panicked voice over the comm. They're not using weapons, they're converting our people. On the security monitors, Hannah saw something that would haunt her dreams forever. The boarding creatures had found a group of technicians trapped in a supply closet. Instead of killing them, the aliens were doing something worse. Metallic tendrils extended from their bodies, piercing human flesh. As she watched, the technicians' screams turned to inhuman roars as their bodies began to change, becoming twisted hybrids of human and machine. They're turning people into more of themselves? She whispered. The lights flickered as another section of the station lost power. In the darkness, Hannah made a decision that would change everything. I have to get to Keth, she said. Dr. Lee. You're not going anywhere, Park ordered. It's too dangerous. But Hannah was already moving. She slipped out of the command center during the confusion and headed for the maintenance shafts. Behind her, she could hear Park shouting orders to his security teams. The journey to the lower levels was a nightmare. The station shook constantly as more boarding pods attached themselves to the hull. Through the walls, she could hear the sounds of battle, but also something worse, the screams of people being converted. When she finally reached the containment level, she found Keth exactly where Taeyun had said he would be. The massive creature stood motionless in the corridor, but as soon as he sensed her presence, his multiple eyes turned toward her. Little star mind. His voice echoed in her thoughts. You should not have come. It is dangerous here. I couldn't leave you, Hannah said, approaching him carefully. Are you hurt? The barriers were powered by fear and hatred. When the great danger came, when the devourers arrived, those emotions changed to terror. Terror cannot maintain the prison walls. As if to emphasize his words, another section of the station shuddered under attack. Through their psychic link, Hannah could feel Keth's growing agitation. They are here, he said. The consumers of worlds. They have followed my distress calls across the void. This is my fault, Hannah realized. If I hadn't been separated from you, if you hadn't been so distressed. No, Keth's mental voice was firm. This was always going to happen. My people sent me to investigate the human presence here because we detected the ancient installations awakening. The devourers follow such signals like scavengers follow the scent of death. The sound of running. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Dr. Choi Minho and Dr. Yang Sora rounded the corner, followed by a security team. When they saw Hannah standing next to the freed Vorthok, they all raised their weapons. Dr. Lee, step away from the creature immediately, the team leader ordered. You don't understand, Hannah said. He's not the enemy. The real threat is her. Words were cut off by an inhuman shriek from behind the security team. One of the devourer creatures had found them, a nightmarish thing that looked like a giant spider made of rotting flesh and twisted metal. Its multiple limbs ended in sharp points that dripped with some kind of acidic substance. The security officers opened fire, but their energy weapons had little effect. The creature absorbed the shots just like the ships had done, growing brighter and more aggressive with each hit. Then Keth moved. The Vorthak's speed was incredible. In one fluid motion, he leaped over the human group and crashed into the devourer creature. His massive claws, which had seemed so terrifying when he was caged, now became instruments of protection. The battle was brief but vicious. The devourer tried to convert Keth the same way it had changed the human technicians, extending metallic tendrils toward his flesh, but something went wrong. Instead of piercing his scales, the tendrils began to smoke and dissolve. Impossible. Yang breathed. Keth's claws found vital points in the creature's hybrid anatomy. With a final gurgling cry, the devourer collapsed and began to dissolve into a pool of organic sludge. They cannot convert us, Keth explained as he turned back to the stunned humans. Our minds are too different, our flesh too pure. That is why they fear us, why they seek to destroy us completely. Minho was staring at the dissolved remains of the devourer. It talked. The creature talked. His name is Keth, Hana said firmly. And he just saved all of our lives. The station shook again, more violently than before. Through the walls, they could hear the grinding sound of more boarding pods attaching to the hull. There are too many of them, the security team leader sighed. We need to evacuate. The Keth was moving toward a section of wall that looked no different from any other. As he placed his massive hands against it, the metal began to glow with strange symbols that definitely weren't human in origin. What is he doing? Yang asked. Waking the Guardians, Hana said, understanding flooding through her as images from Keth flashed in her mind. The installation below us. It's been waiting for thousands of years for a Vorthik to activate it. The wall slid away, revealing a passage that led down into darkness. But it wasn't empty darkness. Far below, lights were beginning to flicker on. Not the harsh white of human technology, but a soft blue glow that seemed almost alive. My people built this place long ago, Keth said, his mental voice reaching all of them now. A fortress, to guard against the devourers. It has waited in silence, but now it wakes. From deep underground came a sound like the heartbeat of some vast machine. The station's lights stopped flickering as power flowed up from the ancient installation. On the security monitors, they could see throughout the station. The devourer creatures suddenly stopped their advance, as if sensing some new threat. The defense grid is activating, Keth continued, but it needs a guardian to guide it. One who can link with its systems and direct its power. He looked directly at Hana, and she understood what he was asking. The psychic link, she said. You need me to help you interface with the ancient systems.